Hello.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Intelligent Masculinity series here on the Sick of This Shit publications. I'm Nick Perro, not your dad, and I am joined today by my friend and a gentleman who I've gotten to know over the last few months and interact with. And you all probably know him from the Find Out podcast and now Find Out Media, Tim Fullerton. It's good to see you.
Hey,
Do
Nick.
you mind introducing yourself to everyone real quick so they
Sure.
know who you are?
Sure. So thanks, Nick. It's been so great getting to know you too. This part of the fun thing about this journey is meeting so many amazing people that want to make a difference in the world, which is really, really great. But I am a longtime digital and political strategist. I worked on the first Obama presidential campaign. I was in his administration for 5 years. I was chief digital officer for the state of New York. I was a VP of marketing at WeWork for a little while. Had my own digital marketing agency, and now I'm the co-founder and CEO of Find Out Media, where we are building content to appeal to men, which we hopefully think will move more of them to our side on the left.
Awesome. Well, to be honest, part of the reason I'm able to do this series, this Intelligent Masculinity series, is because of the work that Find Out podcast started and the masculinity talks that you guys are having just by the nature of them and purposeful discussions in that direction towards a better manosphere. And as I say, a manosphere that doesn't suck
Right.
and one that isn't oppressive to people, but actually teaches men how to be good men. And so I've started this series, the Intelligent Masculinity series. I think you're my 8th interview so far. I'm doing an initial series of interviews throughout the month of January and February, 2 to 3 a week. And I'm writing a huge set of articles that follow. So this interview will also feed into the written article series that goes along with it. So I'm really excited for all of this. I've gotten to explore masculinity with multiple men in using these same questions, but finding very different experiences in very constructive ways. And so I wanted to get your thoughts around intelligent masculinity, and I have some questions for you today.
Great.
And some of them are more serious, others are a little more playful. We end the set with a 4-part question around the Mulan song from Disney Mulan song of "I'll Make a Man Out of You."
Okay.
Because that's the clarion call, at least when I was a kid, clarion call for men. It's like the "Let's Go Girls" of men's songs, and it stuck with me. And so I hope that one's a little bit playful for you too.
Okay.
And before we go into it, before we get into the actual questions themselves, you just mentioned Find Out Media rather than Find Out Podcast.
Yep.
And so could you give a little bit of news or updates around that? Because that's really exciting to me too to hear.
Yeah, so we thank you. So we obviously have the Find Out podcast, which was originally how we started with this, and we realized that we were onto a sort of model of people who, influencers or creators that have large accounts. Like me and my co-host combined have over 4 million social media followers, and so that's, I think, why part of the reason why Find Out took off was we had an engine to push people to it, because it's very hard to grow podcasts. And so we've decided to take that model wider. And so we have 6 shows in development with creators that I guarantee you'll know at least a couple of them. We're not quite there on announcing them, but next month we will be. So there will be 6 new shows with both men and women, also people of color. This is not just a white men exercise, but yes, so we have 6 shows. There'll be one on American Power, and it's actually called American Power, which looks at sort of how energy and international relations mix. Venezuela is a perfect example of that. Ukraine's an example of that too. We've got a foreign policy show coming. We've got a show called, I can say it, I won't tell you who the hosts are, but it's called Get Angry.
Nice.
With 2 young men, both of, I think combined, they've got 7 or 8 million social followers amongst them. A history show that puts sort of now into perspective. And we're also talking about some cultural shows too, like a soccer show, and I'd love to do a music show and a dad's podcast at some point. But the whole goal is to just provide really like entertaining content that also teaches people about, as you say, intelligent masculinity, or I say positive masculinity, rather than the sort of garbage that especially young men are being told, which is like pump your chest up and push people down in order to lift yourself up, which I just don't subscribe to at all.
Yeah, no, I'm that's one of the reasons that like the Find Out podcast and the work that you guys have been doing is really important, and has inspired me in a lot of ways. So thank you for continuing to do the work that you guys are doing. I think it's really needed. And I'm glad to see that you're also expanding to have female co-hosts, and non-male co-hosts, I guess, to be more specific, because in the end it doesn't matter.
Right.
And non-white co-hosts, because I think
Right.
having that diversity of audience and diversity of voice is really, really important.
Yep.
In especially in masculinity discussions, but just in general, better humaning. And this, in the end, is a better humaning series. So you fit in really well with it, and what we're trying to do. And so I'd love to get right into some of these questions for you. I tend to go long sometimes, but I have to keep myself right at the hour because I have another one of these following.
Hosting is hard, man. I host Find Out, and it is not, it's tiring. It's
an art.
Why some of these guys make, tens of millions of dollars. So hopefully you and I will be there someday.
Hopefully that's plug. If you want to become a free or paid subscriber to either one of us, please do, or Find Out Media or Banner and Backbone, please do come support us. We both do need the support and the help, because it does help. On Tim's side, it's actively helping employ people.
Yes.
And on my side, it's going to lead to actively employing people in the future once I can pay myself like to be able to put food on the table, because shit's expensive. So thank you everyone for being with us. We appreciate. I have not been following the chat at all, so I'm very sorry again, everyone. Normally I'm much better about that. So good morning everyone in the chat. It's good to see y'all. Smash the hearts for us, so that we can, while we get into this really good discussion, and let's get into it, because hosting's hard, and remembering to stay on task is even harder. Especially when you have ADHD and you're just like boom, 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 boom. So this first question is a two-parter, and I finally wrote down the second part, for partially for myself, but for everyone else too. So it's not a trick question, but it's a really important two-part question. And the first part is, who in your life has been one of the most influential, and I've changed it here, masculine figures? Doesn't have to be a male, but masculine figures, and why? Typically a male on this part of the question, but I did not want to be exclusive when I asked these.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think probably within my own family, both my dad and my grandfather were, very progressive. Well, at least in their time frame, probably not as progressive as we are, but like they always pushed me to be kind to people, to be nice to people, never get in fights unless you need to protect yourself. No, just really like leading by example and showing, what it means to be a positive masculine man. And I think the thing with my dad in particular that was helpful to me was like, and not good for him though, he did not like his job. He had the same job for 40 years. So he encouraged me, and he was born in a town over from where I was born, but like lived in my town of Bath his entire life, outside of like a few little bits in surrounding towns, and was like, go out in the world, go see stuff. And they took us places, right? Like they took me to DC when I was 12, and I was like, oh, I want to be here at 12. I was like, oh, I saw the people in the buildings, like, oh, I want to do this. And it was very rare for people at that age, I think, to, everyone was still saying they wanted to be a baseball player or be in the NFL or something, which of course I wanted, but I also knew that was very, very unlikely. So like they got me out of Maine, because where I'm from, which is a fairly isolating place, like just thinking about crossing state lines, like that was always a big event for me. And now, like, I lived in DC, Virginia, Maryland, or even in New York, Connecticut's right there, New Jersey, like, it's not as big. And so he encouraged me to go explore. And I think that made a profound impact on me. And I left. I'm not there anymore. But that both of them, I would say, were my role models.
So what were some of the key lessons that you learned from your dad or your grandfather outside of the like go places, which is a key lesson? Because I'm from Vermont originally, and I used to go to Maine, and that was an adventure. Like that was going
Right.
somewhere, going from Vermont to Maine, 2 states over. We did that every summer. We spent summers in Old Orchard Beach,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
and that area. So we were a bit touristy, but we spent summers there for a couple weeks at a time. So I know, and I love Maine, and I love at least the coastal side of Maine is where I've been most of.
Well, that's where I grew up too, was the coast.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and I played soccer out there, and it's a beautiful area. So I love Maine. But building on that is like, what are some of the other like key lessons that they taught you? Maybe on lessons, not just the good lessons that they've taught you, but maybe on some of the lessons from a mistake that they've made, that has
Yeah.
taught you something really well.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm pretty open about this, but my dad also became an alcoholic after both of my brother and I left. My brother's 2 years younger, is 2 years younger than me. He developed a drinking problem. I mean, the roots of it were I was still in high school, but was not like at the time. Didn't you hear these stories of people growing up with alcoholic parents, these nightmare scenarios. I didn't have that. I was very, very
Yeah.
lucky, but he sort of developed it actually after my grandfather died, and he became my grandmother's caregiver. She completely fell apart, so he never got to grieve. And his way of dealing with it was a drink before, and then it was two, and then it spiraled. And so I think from that, and I watched it, and I learned a lot about what not to do, or to recognize problems before they explode. Even to this day, like when I, think about having a drink or something like that, I'm always like, do I want this or do I need this? And to make sure it's a want, not a need. I'm not proclaiming that I know how to beat alcoholism, but I just mean like I saw how damaging that was. I mean, it was 10 or 15 years of a nightmare, really. And every time my
Yeah.
mom called me, because we set up a rule, like to try to prevent him from, I mean, we tried everything, but we tried to prevent him from drinking was if my mom caught him, she would call me because my dad is, I learned a lot from my dad, but my dad was a quiet man. He was not me, basically. I think I got from my mom's side, but I would, I ended up being the parent. And, I don't want my son to ever have to go through that. And I know he didn't want it either. And before he passed away, he did mostly beat it, or you don't really beat alcoholism, right? You live with it, but like contained, I guess, is
Yeah.
the right term. So that was good, but like I never want to be in that situation, and I never want my son to be in that situation because he's an only. So like, I at least had my brother, but like he won't. So I do not, like I will not allow that to happen to my son.
No, I think that's probably going to tie into one of my later questions, for you too, on self-reflection and self-evaluation. However, I think that's just a key idea for to build off is like with the masculine figures in your life, your grandfather and your dad, who have been really important, both positive and negative, on different areas. Like, why do you how do you see their relationship as different compared to other men in your life or other masculine figures in your life? I don't think I've ever asked somebody in the interviews this way, but like, and you don't even have to have a good answer. Is do you see is there a difference other than them just being like? I'll let you answer the question before I add any biases to it. Do you see there being like a difference in how you treat their relationship to you or revere their relationship to you than you do other men in your life?
That's a great question. Yes, I mean, I they taught me the right way, and I think seeing a lot of people, particularly, we're not really, going too political here, but like, you see all these men driving by Governor Walz's house yelling the R word with their kids in the back.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, even I grew up in the 80s and the 90s, right? And and like, unfortunately, everybody used that R word, not really understanding how damaging it was. But my grandparents or my dad would never have done that. Like, and it wouldn't have been, I mean, and if they saw somebody doing that, they would have been disgusted. And so it is true that, like, that uh, that how you're brought up makes such a difference in who you become. And I think that, we need men to be better parents, to teach their kids not like America number one and everyone else sucks, and like, screw immigrants and screw gay people and all these things. Oh, sorry. Hold on one second. Yes. No, sorry. If I see it, I'll bring it out. It's the beauty of doing co-working. But like, I think men need to be better, and that's part of why I know you're doing your project and I'm doing mine. I have friends that are the same as me, but I also have friends that are not, and they were raised in families in which their parents did use those terms, and they were derogatory towards people. And I don't think that they are having happier lives, like constantly being afraid of people that they have no reason to be afraid of just because of the color of their skin or who they love or who they are. And I think that there is a big schism happening in this country, which I'm really nervous about, is that some of these bad things that I thought were, and maybe this is my privilege coming out, but I thought we were past, screaming the R word at a governor who has a son who has a disability. I just think we need to be so much better than what's being projected with one group in particular. And I think everybody knows who I'm talking about.
Yeah. No, I agree. And this series, like I say to every time, is it's a better humaning series in general. Like, obviously, it's a better humaning series. People, all these lessons that apply to you as a intelligent or positive masculine role. I'm not gonna say the R word just for a question in the chat. If you want to look it up yourself, it's not an appropriate word. It is very derogatory towards people with disabilities, especially those with learning disabilities. And I have learning disabilities, so I'm not going to say that word. And I am a disabled person, period. So I'm not going to say that word. Just like as a Jewish person, I wouldn't say the K word. And I don't use things like the N word.
Right.
There's reasons you don't use words because they're disgusting, like they're dehumanizing, disgusting words, and there's no reason to repeat them. And I think it's okay that you bring that point specifically, because what I think is men are the problem. This is a better humaning series, and women aren't the problem right now. En masse, women are not the problem. The largest group in the country that is the problem are men, but are specifically white men. And we're the ones causing a lot of the issues. So this is a series for men and to help white, especially folks that look like us, be better. And I think you make a good point that it's a very dangerous schism that we're in. And one of those things that I think these men or these individuals who masquerade as men, who have this fragile and fake masculinity, like Pete Hegseth, like Stephen Miller, like Charlie Kirk did, like Ben Shapiro does, like Nick Fuentes does. These are all fake masculine appearances. These are all charades and performances. One of the things I think they missed in their life was a feminine role model and a feminine figure that taught them good lessons as well. And this is why I've added a second part to this first question. Going back to the overall question, was your influential masculine figure in your life. And I've found through all these conversations and in my life too, because I live this experience, is some of the most important people in our lives, and many of the most influential people in our lives are the feminine figures and
Mhm.
feminine models. And so, from your life, who has been one of those influential feminine figures that's left a really lasting impression for you, and why?
Yeah, I mean, it's a similar answer to the other. I mean, you can see that I had a pretty good upbringing, but my mom won, but in particular, my grandmother on my mother's side, and I can tell you why. So my grandmother got married at 19 to a Navy man, and they got divorced within 2 years. But my mom had been born, and so my grandmother was a single mother, a divorced 21-year-old in 1952 in or 53 in Maine, and didn't go to college, of course. And, so that was somewhat limiting. And luckily, her parents helped her tremendously, but like had no support from I, I don't really call him my grandfather because I never met him, but like my my biological grandfather on that side supported her none. Um, and but my grandmother, was the most positive person that I ever met. Like she had this big booming voice and this big booming laugh, and everybody in the hometown knew her. And people would come up to me and say, "You're Tim," and I'd have no idea who they were, but it's because my grandmother talked to her about me and my brother, and I never saw her complain. She went through cancer in the 2000s of which they thought was terminal, and she beat it. She got another 15 years. She didn't have a lot. I don't think she ever made much above minimum wage in her entire life, but she was independent and she was very social. She never got married again. I never saw her date anybody. Um, and I was just like, anytime I would complain about something, after looking back on it, I'm like, what am I doing? Like, she went through like this nightmare, and I'm like angry about something that happened in practice or and so it was really grounding. And she passed away. It'll be 4 years, 5 years this year. I think 5 years this year. She lived to 89, and again, like was just so positive. And she loved my wife, and she got to meet my son, and was just a remarkable person overall. Like if everybody was like her, man, this world would be such a better place.
That's amazing, and that's also, we have a bit of that experience in my family because my wife's family has multi-generational familial groups still alive.
Oh, great.
How has that been an influence for you as a father, and just as the grandchild, but as also as a father at this point? Is how has the being able to have that multi-generational of a great grandparent in existence and alive for your children at the same time, and what has that done for you to what model has that given to you to bring forward?
I mean, I think it's family is important, and there's no real replacing it. But like anybody can be your family. I did grow up. I actually had Well, I only remember one great grandparent, but I actually think I had three. Two of them passed away when when I was like 3 months, and one when I was like a year or something like that. So I don't really remember that. There's like one picture with me. But my grandfather, I used to spend every Friday night either at my grandparents' house or my grandmother's house. So back and forth we would go. So they all lived in around the same area. My grandfather died when I was 16, and he died of lung cancer because he was a chain smoker who actually had quit because my brother and I begged him to, essentially. So he did quit, but it was too late. And one of the ways that had an impact on me is that I think I've had 5 cigarettes in my entire life, like, stupid college drinking, whatever. Like, I have no interest in cigarettes because I saw my grandfather wither away because it was a long, painful end. And I
Yeah.
never want to go through that. Also, and he died at 66, and then my dad died at 70. So, these things, obviously I love them dearly, but it's also had a profound impact on me realizing like, well, I don't want to go at 74 if that's the trajectory. I want a lot more time. So no smoking, exercising, things like that. Like my son, he didn't really, I mean, he met my grandmother a few times, but like 2 and younger, I think, is when he saw her. So
Yeah.
like, but like she did get to see it, so it made me feel good. But it is family's really, really important to have around you, especially when you have children, and especially if they're positive. Like I'm very lucky. I mean, we all have baddie cousins
Yeah,
and uncles and stuff, but the core group, which was small because my parents were both only children, um, was really tight and really important to me, and so I think that has shaped who I am today.
that's amazing. Um, I'm glad. One of my favorite parts about all of this is I get to learn so much about the folks that I've started to get to know, and so does everybody else. But it's just a lot of fun to hear these
Yeah, yeah.
stories.
I don't usually talk
Um,
about this stuff, so it's fun to do it.
yeah, I think right now too, it's really important to be able to do this too. Even though a lot of people are. I get feedback a lot still of why are you doing this right now? What is the importance of doing this? It's because there's something we have to be for,
Right.
um, and we have to shape men so that we don't just keep falling, because there's a huge void in the discussion. And leading into my next question is one of the things we both you talk about it as positive masculinity, I label it as intelligent masculinity. Underneath, I'm assuming it's going to be very similar of an idea, and a concept to you. So I have a working theory on what intelligent masculinity is, and I'll share it after because I, again, don't want to bias your opinion, your thoughts on this first. And I don't know if you've read any of the articles I put out, and if you haven't, that's okay. But I have a definition in there that I think is working pretty well. But I want to know what your thoughts are. Is what does intelligent or positive masculinity mean to you?
Yeah, it means a few things. I mean, I think it's one, positive in nature, right? So like not negative. It's the opposite of negative, right? So like, caring about people around you, like helping people when they need it, like being kind. Like these are all things that I would say are positive or intelligent masculinity. Not like making fun of other people or making jokes at the expense of other people. Um, you know, being supportive of people in your community that have differences from you. All of those things to me are what positive masculinity is, or intelligent masculinity. And compared to, you know, the unintelligent masculinity, which is playing to people's fears about others, right? Whether it's Somali immigrants in Minnesota or Maine, or whether it's the LGBTQ plus community, or whether it's a Democrat or a conservative or whatever. Like we should be always like lead with kindness until it is not received is sort of the way I would phrase all of that.
I think that's great. I'm gonna give you my definition so that we
Okay.
can, while we do this too, so maybe you can use it in any of your answers, or just think about it. Is to me, intelligent masculinity is. Hold on, let me actually pull it up because I should have done this ahead of time. I'm slow on the uptake today.
That is
Um,
okay.
but it is the ability to, or she's. I'm not going to try and butcher my own definition while I don't even have it up. Sorry, y'all. Give me 1 second. Live stream. This is how I do it on live streams. I lose myself.
Well,
Um,
had to answer the door, so like we're doing it live, right? That's the
yeah. As we'd say, fuck it, doing it live. I
exact.
don't mind swearing on these shows, especially. I don't mind swearing on any of my shows. You've, as you've met me before, my filter level is probably around one, um, um, because I do respect filters for some things,
Yep.
obviously, but I don't for other things. Um, I do have a friend who now owns the website Smeglomaniac, because that's my definition of Stephen Miller. Is he is smegma, and I don't know if you know what smegma is, um, but it's gross, and so we're going to start putting together the Smeglomaniac website at some point, um, because I do value words like that and the play on it. Okay, so getting back to our questions as we talk about like words and what they mean. Intelligent masculinity, in my thesis so far, is the refusal to outsource our accountability onto others and the discipline to live with the consequences of our actions and values, be those good consequences or bad consequences, but the discipline to live with the consequences of our actions. Um, and so just wanted to put that thought into your head as we continue moving forward through our discussion here. Um, is you've talked about it in various ways so far, is how you model your do things, and or how you've received modeling in your life of what masculinity looks like and what intelligent masculinity can and might not look like, and what false masculinity looks like, and this frail ego driven masculinity. So in your mind, how do you or in your life, how do you actually model the intelligent positive masculinity, for yourself and for others around you, because you are a father and what you do impacts your children, um, and their view of the world. So how do you model it for them?
That is a great question, and is something that I am constantly, thinking about. And I think I mean, some of it is really uh, living my values. I mean, what we're doing with Find Out Media and what we're trying to do is try to make a better class of men, uh, and not be so shitty to people. And so being that, like helping others when necessary, very important, and showing up for people when they need it. All of those things I think are really important. And so it's really more of a showing than telling, though there is telling as well. I mean, my son isn't old enough to really have any sort of conversations about the MAGA movement and what is going on. But like, I think having conversations about the way the world works and, the advantages or disadvantages that certain communities have is important to tell kids. Like I grew up in Maine is the whitest state in the country. And
Is
so
it?
it is by
I was
percent.
always taught that Vermont was the whitest state in the union.
No, it is.
Um,
It is Maine. It is Maine. And, um, you know, uh, we did have a Navy base when I was growing up. It's closed now, but like, so there were some kids from other places, but generally speaking, my classes were 99% white. So like, we didn't really get a lot of exposure until I went to a college that was predominantly white too, but then I moved to Washington, DC, which is not. And, you know, it was eye-opening to be amongst people who'd had different experiences, but I never feared them, and I never was like worried. In fact, I was more interested in hearing their experiences. And so I think, and I live in New York now, which again, another very diverse place. And, you know, um, it it matters to show, and I think that was part of like my parents taking me on trips to these places when I was growing up to see diversity because we didn't have it.
yeah.
I even remember my parents taking me to Provincetown in the late 1980s, early 90s, which for those of you who don't know is a very large gay community in Provincetown, and they took me specifically to be like, here you go, like, see, there's nothing different here, and I think that stuff matters, and so I try to do that with my son where I can as well.
I think that's really awesome. Can you talk a little bit and maybe use this time for just a moment to sell your or promote yourself and what Find Out Media is doing too? Because I think this is an important part of where Find Out Media fits in, and like you've talked about of the podcast is how do you use Find Out and the platform that you have,
Mhm.
and how do you work with the other male creators that you are friends with to purposely model this in a visible way?
Right.
Um,
Well, and one of the greatest things about doing this work is meeting so many men that share our same values, like Nick, like you and I do, and that and I think that men haven't, white men in particular, but all men have not been doing the work on our side, like the women, and particularly Black women. And it's time for us to stand up. And it's been great to see a lot of men raise their hands and say, "I want to be involved. I want to be part of the solution." Like, even though I am in the most privileged class in this country, probably in the world, I would say, white men in the world are the most privileged. Um, you know, they want to help and they want to tear down some of these structures that have been built over centuries to give everybody an opportunity. And so, the guys that we have chosen to work with are all people that we know, uh, and that are just like us as far as like core values. I mean, everybody's different. We have a country music artist who you know who that is, and we'll announce that soon. And we've we've got an army sniper, like that, and we've got an oil and gas expert, and we've, like all this range of people. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how the community reacts to like all of this content that has never come from men on the left before. And I think there's a real market for it. I mean, I was one of the White Dudes for Harris founders as well. And that's how I got started or brought back into politics, to be perfectly honest. And like, I looked around the room and I was like, all these guys share my values, and like, everyone's got their backs. No one's sniping at each other. Like, and so I think you're going to see a very different version of men than most people have seen online before. And that's what I'm really excited with the whole Find Out Media umbrella.
That's awesome. I love that. I love that you're bringing that to life, to get these folks out there and these voices even more of a platform, and build centralized structures for people to be able to build off of, or umbrellas to be able to build under in various ways. Like I've described you guys in the past as like the Midases and Lincoln Squares of the world, or what Brian Tyler Cohen's, and the big like groups on top. And then there's those of us who are slightly those who are slightly smaller. There's the Find Out Media, and that size of networks. And then there's folks like me with Banner and Backbone and Sick of the Shit Publications, who are smaller, but we have the space to grow because of folks like Find Out Media, Wajahat Ali, and Qasim Rashid, and groups like that. Like those sizes, you all give us like the ability to learn and grow. And I think it's really awesome that you're continuing to build that.
Well, I really appreciate that. And that's really like, and I know I've told you this offline, but like our mantra really is impact first, revenue second. Like, we are a business and we do need to make money, but what we're in this for is the fight for our future and to win. And, with these shows, we're going to be coming out with some new ways for people to organize and communicate. Like, we're building an app, which should be ready next month, which is built off of the what's called the Fediverse, so that it's not owned by anybody. Billionaires can't screw with our algorithms. Like, this thing is actually going to be hosted in Europe because, frankly, we can't trust it being hosted here. And so it is going to be a mixture of all of our content plus a social feed, so people can have these conversations in a space with other like-minded people and not worry about trolls and all of these things. So like, we'll have more information on that soon, but we want to build a digital army. We don't want to just like be a ratings hit, which is great. We want that, but like, all in the purpose of like making this country a better place for everybody. And, whether that's, raising awareness about the 9, not 2, but the 9 people who have been murdered by ICE. Because we've really talked about 2, and they are the 2 white people. There was video. So like it makes sense that we're talking about it, but you got to talk about the other 7 as well, which actually Qasim is one person who educated me about that. I knew there were some, I didn't realize there were 7, and they're all people of color. So
I've only heard one other name, which was Keith Porter.
Right. Keith. And then there's 6, did I say for 5, 6 others.
6 others.
The names, I read them on or we read them on something their show or on YouTube somewhere, but like, and that's what the network effect is, right? Like, we're learning from everybody too. We're learning from you guys, and we're learning from Midas, like obviously looking at their models and figuring out how the hell do we get to 5 million subscribers on YouTube, which is a very, very handy thing to have. But yeah, we all learn from each other. And I think what's been awesome is that no one's been gatekeeping. Like, no one's been like, I'm not telling you my secrets. We talk, I give you all the information that I've got. Because like, it's not like, there's not going to just be one group that succeeds. We need lots of groups to succeed. And there is so much space on our side, and we are so far behind the right. I can't tell you how many parents have liberal progressive parents telling me that their sons listen to Andrew Tate because there's not like a lot of counter to that. And he is feeding them a lie. And most of these guys are still young. They're, frontal cortex or whatever your brain.
Their cerebral cortex area.
Yes, math, science are not good things, but are not fully developed until you're 25. Like, you're getting poisoned in the online space, from essentially the moment you open a phone and create accounts, you're getting fed a lie about like the way to be a man is to be rich and jacked, and then you can get a subservient wife and you'll like be able to buy a Lamborghini. And that's what Andrew Tate tells his people. That's what Nick Fuentes essentially, he doesn't really go so much into the relationship part, which we don't really need to go into that with
He
him.
has some interesting views on relationships that I have discussed, and he's a odd individual.
I mean, he's a Nazi. Like,
Yes.
he's a Nazi.
Yes, he's a Nazi, and he has some really, really bad views about himself and sex.
Yeah, and I don't know, Nick, you might be breaking up here a little bit. I don't know if it's me or you, but I think
You're back with me. Me.
you got it now.
That was me. Yeah,
Okay.
that was me.
It's okay. What I was saying essentially is like, he's the one that made up the "your body, my choice" line after the election. These guys do not deserve any visibility whatsoever, and it pains me to even talk about them, but they're big enough now that you have to. But like, that's why we need like 1,000 of us over here tackling all kinds of angles, because we have to confront this in the various different ways that we can, actually get people to, interested in our information. And then once you get them in, you're usually okay. But like, we are in a fight of our lives right now, and there's two paths, and one of them is really bad. One of them's really good.
Yeah.
But we got to get people to understand which one's the good one and which one's the bad one.
Yeah. Yeah, we do. And hopefully all of this helps people figure that out. And as we continue to put more content out and make an endless stream of noise, maybe people will start listening to us instead of the Andrew Tates of the world. And it seems that people are. There's not a maybe. People are listening to us. We just need more of them. We just need to continue to grow as we're doing, and we're doing it organically, but I think all fairly quickly in the process. And before I get too far down any other rabbit holes, because I got to keep myself moderated here too, is all of this does relate into the next question, and how you purposely grow, and how you purposely move forward and are for things and have values that you stand by, and live and want to enact in your own life is, how do you self-reflect and self-evaluate on the choices you've made during the day, the masculinity that you are presenting, the image you are putting, yourself in general?
Yeah.
So what do you do to self-reflect and self-evaluate?
I mean, I'll admit I don't do a great job of that. I'm somebody that it's funny. One of the co-founders said this to me, and it was the first time anyone said it to me, was like, "Your brain is constantly moving, isn't it?" They said it to me, and I said, "Yes." Like I have a very hard time. This is one of my weaknesses. I have a very hard time turning it off, and like, I go to bed thinking about work. I wake up thinking about work. I think constantly about everything all the time. I did meditate for a while when I took a bit of a sabbatical between two jobs, which was, I did this 70-day, 53-day meditation challenge thing, which actually helped tremendously. It was a pain in the ass because it was 23 minutes every day. And like, that doesn't seem like much until you have to do it every day. A few times I had to do it, like I was going to bed and I was like, oh, I actually have to do this first, which, try to meditate and not fall asleep. It's a challenge. But I have to do better at that stuff. And people ask me about my hobbies, and my hobbies, frankly, are doing this. Like, this is what I like to do, but it's not a relaxing,
No.
So I have to, I do, I try every day. I think the best way to answer this is I try every day to live my values as best I can. I try to surround myself with people who have a healthy opinion of not only themselves, but of the world. I try not to be around too many negative people, or like people, like when people say all hope is lost, I can't engage with that, because I always think that there is a path forward. So, I think that it would probably behoove me to take more breaks. But, I also really love what I do. So, but I've never really been like a list person or a like, at the end of the day, what was the good, everyone's like, what was one good thing and what was one bad thing. And I'm always like, I'm much forward. I don't hold a lot of regrets. We all have some because we're human beings, but like, I generally like my mantra has always been that when I am on my deathbed, hopefully very long time from now, that I can look back on my life and have no regrets or no major regrets. There's always regrets, but like no, like, and that was another thing I learned from my dad. Like, I think he regretted never going out in the world and trying something different than being from Bath, Maine. And that pushed me. And so I actually feel pretty good about where I am because I have been leading it that way. I mean, again, privileged white male, it's a lot easier for me than others, but that's what I've tried to do. And it's, to this date, worked pretty well. I mean, there's been some bad, I lost my grandmother and my dad within a 10-month period. That was a really hard thing. My dad's was sudden. My grandmother was 89, so it was, sad, but like she lived a long, like healthy life for the most part, and he didn't. And so that was hard. So there have obviously been hardships, but like I don't really hold any regrets over what happened with him. Certainly was not my fault. And, we did everything we could with the amount of time that we had, which was about 10 days. So that's a long-winded way of saying I could do better at reflection, but I also like the mantra of just trying to live my life as best I can, knowing that I am a human being and I'm going to make mistakes, and that is okay.
That's a very healthy, in my opinion, that's a very mindful and healthy way to look at living and to allow yourself, as many would say, is give yourself grace, but allow yourself the space to process your emotions and reflect, even if you're only doing it in passing, because you and I have a very similar brain in that sense. Is it's hard to shut off. It just keeps going and going and going. And it's an effort to shut down and do the self reflection and self evaluation. And I know for me, I've made it like a forceful habit to at least try to reflect a little bit on what I've done throughout the day. Maybe not in a list, but in some sort of effective way to look at, did I do well today? Did
Yeah.
I hurt somebody on accident? Did I purposely hurt somebody? Did I make somebody's day better? What was my impact on today? And if I can end the day with a smile, that tends to be a good day. Um, and so I like that I'm not alone in the hard time on the self reflection. Um, and so that we don't run out of time, we're going to move to these ones are a little bit more fun and a little bit more whimsical for you.
Okay.
Um, and I don't know how familiar you are with Mulan and the song "I'll Make a Man Out of You," but I grew up a choir kid in high school and college, and this is a clarion call for at least the choir community of men to come out and it's our "Let's Go Girls" of songs. And it pumps you up and it gets you ready for the day. It also has some good lessons in it that I think if you listen to the song, not just from a physical standpoint of like what a Chinese warrior or just a warrior would go through and sing to themselves and hype themselves up, is it also has emotional and mental value to it. And so wanted to add a little bit of fun for you here at the end is what using the Mulan song and the chorus from it. It's a 4-part question. And they can be short. You don't have to worry about, there's no right answer. There's no wrong answer. These are fun. The last question tends to be the most exciting because it catches you off guard a little bit.
Okay.
The first one is, what does it mean to be as swift as a coursing river to you? And how would you apply that in your life?
I think that means I would say going with the flow as best you can and riding the wave of life, so to speak, is probably how I would describe that. Like, just we're on this crazy ride together, and there really is no getting off unless, so try to enjoy it the best you can.
Love it. Perfect. How do you embody the force of a great typhoon?
I mean, I think that my co-founders would say a typhoon is probably pretty accurate to describe me. Because I'm like, this idea, I talked to this person, I did this, I did that, like, when I get excited about work, which I am this is the best job I've ever had. It's hard to stop. And we're talking about the mind stuff. So like, I have to hold myself back from like sending messages late at night because I know that is annoying to people, especially staff. You don't want to like the boss shouldn't send something at 10 o'clock because then that person's either going to feel like they need to respond or whatever, and you should not. But I think that, my work style maybe would be considered a bit of a typhoon. I've always thrived in chaos, and typhoons are certainly chaotic.
That is true. They are. This one is similar, but not quite the same.
Okay.
Because this one's I've found is less about chaos, because there's a difference between a wild and a raging fire. Is how are you as strong as a raging fire?
I have always really enjoyed standing up for people and pushing back against injustice. And I have never really understood why more men don't do it with the privileged position that they are in. So I think that would be that I am willing to use my voice to help people who do not have a voice.
I think that's awesome. And I think you're doing a good job at it too. Helping
you.
boost voices. And I listen to the Find Out podcast all the time. Every episode I listen to, because you guys have really good interviews and really good discussions. So I appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you.
And the final question for
I'm ready
the
for
day
this.
is, how are you as mysterious as the dark side of the moon?
Yikes. I'm a pretty open book, so it's tough. I think that when I am in new and different situations, I can get pretty quiet. And I think that, usually I have a horrible poker face, like when there are no restrictions on me. Someone tells me something that, shocks me or is like a what the fuck, you will see it in my face. But when I'm in situations of like chaos, for example, or like I used to work at Everytown with mass shootings, or Oxfam with international disasters, like you have to move like this. And so when I get into those modes, I can tend to get quiet because I'm in my head formulating like what we need to do, like 10 steps out. I'm not just thinking of the next one. So I would say in those moments, I can get like quiet. And if people are like coming at me, I'm like literally like, stop, hold on. And I like get into the zone because I know how all of it should go, but I get quiet. So that would probably be the like, what the hell is he thinking up? Or what is this idea that he's developing now? And I don't bat 1,000, by the way. So like sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not. But I would say that's the moment when I get mysterious as the dark side of the moon.
I like it. This has been so much fun, Tim. Thank you for this really good discussion. I want to give you the last couple minutes here to promote yourself, promote the work that you're doing. I'm going to pull up 2 QR codes first. Would you prefer your own or Find Out first?
Oh, Find Out.
Okay. All right. I've got 2 QR codes for you for today, but promote the work that you're doing and all the stuff that's going on. I know we've talked about it, but how can folks support you?
Yeah, I mean, going and following the Find Out podcast on all social channels, especially YouTube, to be perfect. I mean, Substack's great too. Substack and YouTube are probably the most important ones for us. Substack because obviously we can do memberships. YouTube because we actually get paid per view on that content. So like you can actually support us even if you financially cannot, by just watching our videos on YouTube in particular, especially the long ones. My wife sometimes she listens to everything, but sometimes she'll put it on play and leave it off to the side, because then it's like a 60-minute view. Obviously helps us. And like today we have episodes with actually Stormy Daniels, we interviewed last week, and she just actually texted me. So I'm now buddies with Stormy. Her interview
That was a good episode.
was
That was
really
a
good,
really
right?
good interview.
I didn't know how it was going to go. I will be honest, I've never spoken to an adult entertainer in my life, especially one that has a relationship, so to speak, with the president of the United States. So it was a very interesting thing, but it was a really powerful episode, and really hearing how much they have ruined her life. I mean, she was in tears a few times, right? And she's a remarkable woman, and she doesn't deserve it. So that's a good one. You know, we interviewed Gavin Newsom, which was more of a funny one. Today's episode that just came out is with Eliza Orlins, who is a Manhattan public defender and also was on Survivor twice.
Oh, cool.
So we talked today about knowing your rights if ICE engages you, so that you know, because they are actually legally allowed to lie to you. So knowing your rights is really, really important. So we had a great conversation with her today. But yeah, so like following those accounts and just, you know, watching those videos and subscribing on YouTube in particular would be really, really helpful.
Appreciate it. And I'll put up your personal Substack as well, just so folks can find you there and any of the other work you do, because I think it's important to follow creators in all the places, not just the larger network group of ours, but also our own personal stuff, because that helps build all of our brand around. Do you do much on your personal side, or do you focus pretty solely on?
Not on my Substack. I mostly share find out stuff, but I do all my own original stuff on TikTok, Instagram, and Threads, and Facebook are basically my big ones now, and it's all just at Tim Fullerton. I have, you know, there are other Tim Fullertons. They are probably mad that I've taken all of the handles for everything, but yeah, there's one that's like a guitar teacher in California. I think the one I see sometimes, but yeah, no, you know, I am monetized on some of those, so it helps, you know, with the bills as we're building this thing too. So I'd appreciate any follows on those other accounts as well.
Appreciate it, Tim, and thank you for joining me today, and thank you for this incredible discussion. This has been a lot of fun, and everyone, if you can, please subscribe here on Sick of This Shit Publications to help me continue to grow this platform and host more of these interviews. I'm going to be continuing this series on and on and on. I think this is going to be one of my in perpetuity series over time. And I'm going to be switching over here in a moment to another Intelligent Masculinity interview with Zev Shalev, who I think you should reach out to, Tim. And I also pointed him in Stormy Daniels' direction after your interview, because I was like, that's important. He is a Epstein files and money laundering network aficionado and expert, and does some incredible investigative journalism.
Cool.
So I think you guys would benefit from talking to him if you wanted to have an episode specifically around the Epstein files and that sort of network and the finances around it. It's called I forget it's a heist series, basically, is how he's described it.
Cool.
And it's really incredible.
Well, I will check it out.
Thank you, Tim, for being with me today. I so appreciate it, and really appreciate getting to have this discussion with you. And everyone in the audience, thank you so much for being with us here today. Smash that heart one last time, and then join me again here in just a couple minutes for The Greatest Heist. Sorry, thank you, on narrative.org. That's for Zev Shalev. But join me here in another couple moments with Zev Shalev on Sick of This Shit Publications. Tim, I am Nick Perro, not your dad, here with Tim Fullerton from Find Out Media. This has been a wonderful discussion. Thank you again, Tim, and thank you again to everyone in the audience on Substack, on YouTube, on Twitch, who have been here today with us. And have a wonderful day. Thanks, y'all.
Great. Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, Tim.